this point, AB is responsible for his behavior. They're egging him on. He's done in the NFL. Nobody's gonna waste their time.
No.
And last night took the cake from me. I'm done.
It looks like Antonio Brown is back, and at first what I thought he did was absolutely inappropriate, and we made our own video on that. But this has gotten to a point where, honestly, is getting kind of depressing. I mean, he's continuing to self-destruct, and it's getting kind of pathetic, his antics to try to grab everyone's attention. Now, I know what the comment section of this video is going to say.
Mike, it's clearly working. You're making a video on it.
And to that, I say touche. But nevertheless, I do think it's worth a conversation. Given the recent discussion on the NFL handling head trauma, I definitely think Antonio Brown's behavior needs to be taken a look at a little bit further. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. And if you want the uncensored footage of the pool incident still, we have that on my Instagram account. Go ahead and check that out. It's also on my Twitter page. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? In order to understand what is currently going down, you have to understand where Antonio Brown has been as a person recently. And we discussed this a little bit in our last video. Ever since taking off his jersey and chucking up the deuces when Antonio Brown decided to leave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game versus the New York Jets, there were some ventures that he's undergone that I think were kind of unique. I mean, he teamed up with Kanye West to form Donda Sports, but for the most part, Antonio Brown has just been all over the place, whether it's him launching this crusade against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and claiming that they tried to shoot him up with pain medication in order to throw him back into the game versus the New York Jets, which I'm not really going to comment on because we've already discussed that at the time it went down. You could be on AB's side, and that's his side of the story. The Buccaneers side of the story was Antonio Brown was upset that he wasn't getting the ball. And I'm going to admit, there is a part of me that's like, okay, the NFL could potentially skew this to make Antonio Brown look like the bad guy and make him seem crazy, but his antics kind of speak for themselves. It's not like Antonio Brown is coming off as a misunderstood human being to us all, because you don't need to be a genius to understand what he is trying to achieve here. He's just trying to grab people's attention. And what is he trying to grab people's attention for? My guess is either he likes the attention, or he thinks he's a superstar A-list celebrity, or he's focused on becoming a rapper. I did say in my last video that there are moments where Antonio Brown grabs our attention in probably the best way possible. I mean, you could be as big of a hater of his as you want, but you have to admit, him showing up to Rolling Loud and performing at Rolling Loud Miami was a more positive and productive way to grab people's attention than, say, I don't know, slandering Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski on a podcast, or trying to dunk a woman while he's butt naked in Dubai where she clearly seems uncomfortable. And if you missed that, here's the footage and I'll let you guys decide. We did a whole analysis on that. I don't think we need to repeat our last video on the footage of him dunking a woman into the pool. If you guys missed it, I'll leave it in the end screen. And if you guys are more interested in understanding why on earth he's acting this way, well, we made a whole documentary on the tragedy of Antonio Brown, which compares his interviews before the Vontaze Burfict hit to after the Vontaze Burfict hit. So you might be wondering, okay, Mike, at this point, why are you making this video? And again, I understand that his tactic is working, okay? I understand we're talking about him. I apologize if some people find it annoying, but this just really pisses me off. This personally just really bothers me. You guys all know I'm not a Tom Brady stan. I respect his greatness, whether you think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, or you think he's been bailed out by great defenses and has had a wider margin of error in his most important games. Regardless, I respect Tom Brady for putting himself consistently consistently in positions to succeed, being the king of situational football, and of course his accolades speak for themselves, and his longevity is something that we might never see again, and the only thing I could really compare it to is LeBron James in basketball and Nolan Ryan in baseball. With that being said, one of the greatest things that I think Tom Brady was able to do for Antonio Brown was when every team gave up on AB, Tom Brady brought Antonio Brown, had Antonio Brown stay at his house, and eventually put him on the right track for a brief period of time, enough so for them to win a Super Bowl. And because of that, Antonio Brown became a Super Bowl champion. Now look, AB's response to this recently is the fact that it was a mutually beneficial partnership, and he said this on the Full Send podcast. Why do you think Tom Brady brought in Antonio Brown? Is it because he likes Antonio Brown the person, or is it because Antonio Brown is a superstar wide receiver that is good at his job? Obviously, it's because Antonio Brown is a superstar wide receiver that's good at his job and can contribute to winning, assuming that you could get his personality and his behavior in check. But Antonio Brown said clearly Tom Brady doesn't care about AB the person.
Tom is actually my friend, one of my close friends. But you know, like Ball was saying, what are you saying? I work at McDonald's? You see what I'm saying? Some people have a different definition of friend.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is at the time when he left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I felt like, okay, if you want to slander Tom Brady, it's an appropriate time to slander Tom Brady. I mean, it makes sense at the time. I mean, I don't think he should, and I think you should be appreciative for what Tom Brady was able to do for you, but at least in that situation, you just left Tom Brady's team, it makes sense to slander him if you choose to do so. But that's not what Antonio Brown does. I mean, in the beginning of the season 2 months ago, when Tom Brady took that extended period of time, Antonio Brown tweeted out that Tom Brady manipulates the game, gets 4 days to go home and get his mind right. LOL. Now you see the difference. Put that on. Now, here's the thing, and we did bring this up in the previous video as well. Tom Brady's stature in the NFL is a little bit different than Antonio Brown's, and honestly, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after what Tom Brady's done for you, if he wants to take a month off, you're probably going to grant that to him. But the reason why it was so weird is at this point, the incident with him taking off his jersey versus the New York Jets was 7 months ago. But here's the thing, after the pool incident, which is what dominated headlines on Saturday, which props to Antonio Brown because I think he showed more D in that video than the Seattle Seahawks did in their entire game. Antonio Brown posted this onto his Instagram right before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers faced off against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Now, obviously, he's trying to insinuate something here, but at this point, it's just getting really sad. I mean, I already said this in the last video. AB is doing whatever it takes to cling on to the last little bit of relevance that he has, because now that he's not playing football anymore and he's retired from football, and nobody is going to give him a chance to play football. And honestly, originally I thought the only team that would potentially bring in Antonio Brown was the Baltimore Ravens, maybe in like March, right before his cousin Hollywood Brown got traded to the Cardinals because he had a huge supporter in Lamar Jackson. But I don't think that's gonna happen anymore either. And I think Antonio Brown's starting to understand. He's like, oh, I did something ridiculous on Saturday with that woman, and yeah, it's negative publicity,
But hey, publicity's publicity. At least people are talking about me. It's me, Antonio Brown.
this is just a whole new level of disrespect to the man that gave you one last opportunity, and your vendetta against him, you trying to start this fake beef against him just to cling on to relevance, is just so sad and pathetic that I genuinely feel empathy for this man, and I really think something needs to be done in regards to the CTE aspect of his life. A lot of people claim that Antonio Brown was this way before. I don't necessarily know. Ryan Clark said he acted this way before he got hit by Vontaze Burfict. If anything, maybe the hit exasperated the condition, because honestly, this is just so sad. Why would you start a beef with a man that gave you a chance to win a Super Bowl, won you a Super Bowl, gave you a chance to continue riding with that team, and then because your ego was hurt, you decided to walk out on that team? I mean, we're talking about a man that's lost millions of dollars at this point, that's alienating his ex-teammates. I mean, we We already know that he threw Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus during his time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's just really sad to watch at this point. I don't know. I just had to say something about this. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys are getting a little annoyed at how many times I make videos on this guy. I'd like to hear what you have to say, man. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.